Hello and welcome back to Understanding Depression. Have you ever looked at someone, maybe a successful athlete, a loving parent, or a straight A student, and thought, there's no way they could be depressed? It's easy to assume that depression only touches a certain kind of person. But the truth is, depression doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care if you're at the top of your game, raising a beautiful family, leading a school, or winning academic awards. It can show up quietly, without a dramatic entrance, and it can wear many faces. In today's episode, we'll explore how depression often hides behind the most unexpected smiles. We'll walk through 4 fictional stories, all inspired by real-life experiences, to highlight how easily we can miss the signs, even in people we think are doing just fine. These stories aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to open your heart, because every person carries a story worth understanding, and sometimes that story includes a quiet battle with depression. So get comfortable, breathe easy, and stay with us. By the end of this episode, you might begin to see mental health through a new, more compassionate lens. And don't forget, if this episode resonates with you, please like, comment, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. Let's begin. Meet Jordan. To the outside world, Jordan had it all. A national champion sprinter with record-breaking times, magazine features, and a fan base that cheered his every step. His smile was electric. His confidence seemed untouchable. Coaches called him a role model. Younger athletes idolized him. But behind the scenes, Jordan was exhausted. Not just physically, but emotionally. The pressure to perform, to stay on top, to never show weakness, was suffocating. Every time he won a race, he'd feel a moment of relief, followed by a wave of emptiness. At night, he couldn't sleep. His mind would replay every misstep, every missed second. He started dreading practice, not because he hated running, but because he hated how he felt while running. Like a machine with no room for emotion. Jordan's depression didn't look like crying in a corner. It looked like silence in the locker room, missed texts from friends, a growing need to isolate. And still, he kept posting victory selfies and smiling at press conferences, because that's what champions do, right? It wasn't until he confided in a teammate who had faced similar struggles that Jordan began to seek help. Therapy helped him understand that being mentally unwell doesn't mean you're mentally weak, and that asking for help isn't defeat, it's courage. Jordan's story reminds us that even those who appear to be winning on the outside can be quietly struggling within. Depression doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it whispers beneath the applause. Now, let's talk about Nina. Nina was the kind of school principal everyone admired. She ran a thriving school in a busy urban district, known for her warmth, leadership, and tireless dedication. Students adored her. Teachers felt supported. Parents restaient d'heures. Her calendar was always full. School events, staff meetings, strategic planning. She'd walk the halls with purpose and a kind smile, remembering names and birthdays, encouraging students to dream big. But behind that composed, nurturing exterior, Nina was slowly unraveling. She'd wake up most mornings feeling numb. Tired, numb. Like she was watching herself play a role she no longer connected with. Her joy for teaching and mentoring had dimmed, replaced by a constant sense of being overwhelmed and hollow. At work, she performed. At home, she collapsed. Dinner became a chore. Conversations felt draining. Her weekends were filled with silent tears and a growing sense of shame. How could someone like me, strong, capable, feel like this? Nina didn't believe she had the right to feel depressed. After all, she was successful. She had a purpose, a job, respect. But depression isn't about what you have. It's about what you carry. It wasn't until a colleague, who had once experienced burnout and depression, gently asked if she was okay, that Nina felt seen. For the first time in months, she didn't pretend, and that single moment of honesty led her to seek help and slowly rebuild, not just her routine, but her well-being. Nina's story shows us how depression can coexist with competence, that leadership and vulnerability can walk hand in hand, and that even those who hold others up need space to be held too. Now, let's meet Aisha. Aisha was a 29-year-old new mom. Her baby boy, Malik, had just turned 6 months old. Her Instagram was filled with adorable photos, matching outfits, milestone moments, soft pastel filters. Friends commented things like "you're glowing" or "motherhood suits you so well." But behind that glow was a different reality. Aisha loved her son deeply. That part was never in question. But what people didn't see was the crushing weight she felt every morning. The anxiety before the baby monitor lit up. The panic when he cried and she didn't know why. The guilt that followed her like a shadow. Why am I not happier? Am I failing at this? She'd sit by the window while Malik napped, staring blankly outside. Her meals would go untouched. She didn't recognize the woman in the mirror anymore. Some days, she'd cry quietly in the shower, wiping her tears before her husband got home. Postpartum depression is often misunderstood. It's not always about rejection or resentment. Sometimes, it's about a storm of emotions that doesn't match the expected joy. Aisha wasn't ungrateful. She wasn't broken. She was overwhelmed and silently drowning in expectations. It took a routine visit to her doctor and one honest question, "How are you really?" to open the door. That's when Aisha finally said the words she had held in for months. "I think something's wrong." With the right support, therapy, and the freedom to speak her truth, Aisha began to heal. She learned that being a good mom doesn't mean being a perfect one, and that her well-being matters just as much as her child's. Her story is a quiet reminder. Not every smile is proof of happiness, and sometimes, love coexists with pain. Let's meet Daniel. Daniel was 17. The kind of student who made every parent proud and every teacher smile. Top of his class, captain of the debate team, fluent in 3 languages. His wall was decorated with medals and certificates. His future looked golden. But beneath all that brilliance, Daniel was struggling in silence. Every success felt like a new expectation. Every well done felt heavier than the last. He feared slipping, even just once, because what if people stopped believing in him? At night, he lay awake thinking about college, scholarships, his parents' hopes. He couldn't afford to fail. He barely ate. He stopped hanging out with friends. Even when surrounded by praise, he felt deeply alone. What no one saw was that Daniel had started to experience symptoms of depression. He felt emotionally detached. He had no energy. He sometimes wished he could just disappear for a while. Not forever, just long enough to breathe. But how do you tell someone you're not okay when you've built your identity around being the one who always is? His turning point came during a school mental health awareness week. A visiting speaker, a former high-achieving student turned counselor, shared their story of burnout and depression. For the first time, Daniel saw a version of himself, and it felt like a lifeline. He reached out to the school counselor the very next day. Daniel's story reminds us that high achievement doesn't shield someone from pain. Depression doesn't care how many trophies you've won. And sometimes, the brightest students carry the darkest worries. So what do Jordan, Nina, Aisha, and Daniel have in common? They come from different walks of life. Différents ages, different challenges, but they all battled something invisible. They all lived with depression, each in their own way. And that's the truth we often forget. Depression doesn't have a look. It can wear a jersey. It can sit behind a desk. It can rock a baby to sleep or walk across a graduation stage. It can live inside loud laughter or behind polite smiles, or even in someone who lights up a room, we still carry so many assumptions. That depression always looks sad, that it means you're weak, or broken, or dramatic, that it happens to other people. But depression is a master of disguise. It's often quiet, polite, high-functioning, and it doesn't always wait for your life to fall apart. Sometimes, it shows up in your most successful seasons. That's why we have to stay curious, stay compassionate. We can't afford to judge someone's mental health based on how put together they seem. The truth is, you never know who's struggling, and you might be the safe space they've been needing. So if someone opens up to you, listen without trying to fix. And if you are struggling, please know this: your pain is valid, even if your life looks fine on the outside. You deserve help, you deserve healing, and you are not alone. If there's one message we hope you take from today's episode, it's this: depression doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care about your achievements, your job title, your family photos, or your GPA. It doesn't always wear black or cry in public. Sometimes, it dresses in confidence, in productivity, in the phrase, "I'm fine." That's why it's so important that we challenge the stereotypes. No, depression isn't always obvious. No, it doesn't make you any less capable, lovable, or worthy. And no, it doesn't look the same for everyone. What does help? Understanding, compassion, and the willingness to truly see each other, not just for the roles we play, but for the emotions we carry behind them. So whether you're an athlete like Jordan, a leader like Nina, a mom like Aisha, or a student like Daniel, or maybe someone completely different, you deserve to be heard, to be supported, to be well. And if you're listening right now and thinking, "That sounds like me," please take a breath. You don't have to have it all figured out today, but you do deserve to talk to someone, to take that first step. You're not broken. You're human. Now, before we close, here's something to look forward to. In our next episode, we'll explore how depression expresses itself differently across cultures and genders. From quiet endurance in some communities to misunderstood behaviors in others, we'll unpack how context shapes not just how we feel, but how we cope. So please stay with us. Let's keep learning, growing, and caring together. If today's episode moved you in any way, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Your voice can help someone else feel less alone. Until next time, take care of yourself. You matter.